Have you or a player at your table tried to build a character inspired by Peter Pan or Final Fantasy's Dragoon, but there wasn't exactly a class with enough options to do so, and multiclassing wouldn't pull off the concept either? What if I told you there's a third-party class option on the market designed by one of, if not the best-selling DMsGuild class designers of all time, that will let you or players at your table play a warrior that attacks at lightning speed? So in this video, I will break down the Zephyr class by Benjamin Huffman and prove to you that this is a must-have addition to your games. But before we dive into the mechanics, let's look at the fantasy behind the Zephyr. The Zephyr is not quite a fighter, not quite a rogue, and not necessarily a monk. The fighter has a fantasy of being a heavily armored master at arms, while the rogue relies on cunning and deception. And then there is the monk, which is just, you know, the monk. While all three of these official classes have various aspects to their fantasy that they share with the Zephyr, they still have baggage in their narrative-guided design that makes it hard for a player to feel like they are playing a warrior that relies on a mixture of cunning, speed, and martial aptitude. The Zephyr lets you play the swift warrior character trope. You have the martial talents of the fighter, the cunning of the rogue, and the speed of the monk. That brings us to the mechanics of the class. When I look at third-party classes to see if they are balanced compared to official options, I look to see if the class's mechanical and narrative roles are conveyed in the first 3 levels and how they compare in strength relative to the official options. The Zephyr is a prime example of how to do this right. Often overlooked are the initial class features, hit points, and class proficiencies. The Zephyr is a D8 hit die class similar to the Monk and Rogue, which means it has the potential to be on the front line, but doesn't exactly want to stay there like D10 hit die classes like the Fighter, Paladin, and Ranger. To further drive the point home on this skirmisher playstyle, the Zephyr is proficient with light armor and weapons with the light and finesse properties, and gives you the option to pick 3 skills out of the following: acrobatics, athletics, insight, perception, performance, sleight of hand, and stealth. This brings us to a core class mechanic that feels familiar for those who are invested in the system, but accomplishes making the player feel like their character attacks with quick, deadly precision. Flow is similar to Rage. It puts the character into a transformative state as a bonus action. It increases your power and survivability like Rage, but while Rage is all about strength and anger, Flow is about speed and accuracy. I keep bringing up speed, but I need to point out, I don't mean speed as it pertains to movement in 5e. I refer to speed as it pertains to how the class design makes the players feel like they are acting quickly. Just like Rage, Flow gives Zephyrs a damage boost, but unlike the +2 bonus Rage gives to Barbarian attack damage, Flow instead allows the Zephyr to make an additional attack whenever we dash, dodge, or disengage, and they can land critical hits on a 19 or 20. At level 1, we are still able to make an attack and play into the skirmisher playstyle by being rewarded for taking evasive actions. This tactic is reinforced by another feature at 2nd level, which I will get to in just a bit, but before that, I can't skip over the increased critical hit range. While crit fishing is out of favor with optimizers and min-maxers, it does a solid job of giving small bursts of potential damage and selling the idea of deadly accuracy. What I really enjoy about the damage boost of Flow is that they don't remove chance from the equation. An unfortunate problem with some of 5e's current design from Wizards of the Coast is that many of the newer options given to players negate chance to avoid failure. With just these 2 traits alone, Benjamin Huffman reveals his mastery or 5th edition player option design. He understands that there needs to be a chance of failure while also trying to make players feel powerful. Before moving on to the core features, Flow survivability traits are the last thing to point out. They are simple yet effective. The advantage to dexterity checks and saving throws helps sell the idea that the Zephyr is nimble, and the bonus attack from using the dash, dodge, or disengage actions does incentivize you to use those actions that make you more evasive. Along with Flow, the other features at 1st and 2nd levels create a cohesive gameplay loop that make the class easy to pick up due to the features being deceptively simple and similar to features from official classes. Windborne Stride provides passive traits as long as the Zephyr is wearing light armor or none at all. Each trait is an enhancement to a character's movement that has applications in and out of combat. A Zephyr can use their dexterity instead of strength to determine their jumping distance. If they are knocked prone, it only causes them 5 feet of their movement to stand back up, and their movement speed increases by 5 feet. Sinuous defense is similar to the unarmed defense features found in the Monk and Barbarian, but scales as we level. If we aren't wearing any armor, we start out with a base armor class of 13 plus our dexterity modifier. The base number of 13 becomes a 14 and eventually a 15 at later levels. I like how the scaling armor class helps sell the narrative of your character becoming more agile as they become more powerful. From a gameplay standpoint, this also addresses an issue at some tables where monks and barbarians need dungeon masters to provide magic items to increase their armor class. The last of these initial features is Cunning Action, which should sound familiar as it's the same feature from the Rogue class. Cunning Action is powerful for the Zephyr but not broken. We will be able to consistently use our bonus action to attack as long as we use the dash or disengage action, which emphasizes the hit and run skirmisher playstyle. It is powerful because when paired with Flow, the attack and defensive abilities move from your action to your bonus action, leaving you capable of using your action to attack. If this sounds busted, it's not. This puts it on par with the Monk using Flurry of Blows or Rogue with Sneak Attack. While Cunning Action enables the bonus action attack, it is still limited by relying on Flow. Flow only has a certain amount of uses, so if we're out of Flow, we won't be getting that extra attack. Another way flow limits this interaction is that we must use our bonus action to activate flow, so we won't be getting an extra attack until the second round. Benjamin Huffman further compensates for this interaction in the class's design by not giving the Zephyr the extra attack feature until 11th level. The initial 4 features of the class work in cohesion. Benjamin takes familiar ideas or mechanics and blends them together to create a simple to understand but elegant design. I'll get to the rest of the features and discuss why I think you should add the Zephyr to your games in just a second, but first I'm going to do a brief overview of the subclasses. There are a total of 9 subclasses to choose from that at first glance appear to fit under many of the class fantasies found in the official classes, but as I stated earlier, the Zephyr occupies similar narrative spaces to those classes, but places the subclass fantasies under the umbrella of the Swift Warrior trope, and moves them away from the narrative and mechanical baggage of the official classes. Adamant Arrow is the ranged subclass option that lets you play the Deadly Archer trope if you don't want that bundled with the wilderness survivalist fantasy of the Ranger. Battle Dancer is a highly mobile option that allows you to weaponize dance to play a reactive and supportive role. Dragoon is inspired by the archetype from the Final Fantasy franchise and allows you to pick up a polearm, leap into the air, and attack monsters from above. Lashing Scourge makes whips a viable weapon option with some features that add some survivability and control. Martial Artist allows you to play a swift, unarmed master without the narrative and mechanical baggage of the monk. The subclass turns the Zephyr into a single target controller. It will have you grappling and shoving your enemies with your attacks and reactions. Necrodancer turns the class into a spellcaster that gains access to certain spells by channeling different spirits. This one is interesting as it feels a bit different from the base fantasy, but works well with the core class features and will probably be a top pick for those who like the option of having spells and the undead aesthetic. Neverlander takes inspiration from Peter Pan, turning your Zephyr into the beloved character. You will be playing a supportive role, primarily taunting your enemies so that they fail. Twin Fangs is a snake-inspired subclass that has your attacks dealing additional poison damage. While it is well known that poison damage is one of the most resisted damage types in 5th edition, at later levels you can swap the damage type to acid or necrotic to ensure you're getting damage through. Finally, we get to the Weave Dancer, which is the martial caster subclass. While the Necrodancer ties your character to undead themes, the Weave Dancer allows you to choose your spell schools, which adds some flexibility in how a player wants to flavor their Zephyr. I believe you should add this class as a player option in your games. The Zephyr supports a character fantasy that is pretty common in a variety of media that players will draw their inspiration from for their characters. As I've stated earlier in this video, the Swift Warrior trope can be played as a fighter, monk, or rogue, but those classes come with their own narrative hangups or mechanical flaws that players may not find fun or feel like they don't encapsulate their vision. The Zephyr manages to carve out a niche that it shares with these 3 classes, but does not invalidate their gameplay roles or class narratives. In combat, a Zephyr player will excel at hit-and-run tactics. The Skirmisher playstyle isn't well supported with official options in 5th edition. The Rogue and Monk are the only 2 official classes that should fulfill this gameplay style, but both classes struggle with making it viable. While the Rogue has cunning action to evade, other features in the class or subclasses do not reward or incentivize a player to jump back into the fight to land another blow. Monks do not fare any better as they suffer from being too reliant on ki that it can't consistently play in this manner. This is where the Zephyr will shine as they can be the premier Skirmisher class in your campaigns, and that is actually one of the drawbacks of the class. It is combat oriented with much of the roleplay and out-of-combat roles relying on subclasses, backgrounds, and skill choices. This isn't a bad thing either as each class should be designed to have strengths and weaknesses. This brings me to the overall design of the class. Benjamin Huffman has a proven track record with a variety of player options in his catalog, and the Zephyr is just the latest of his display over his understanding of 5th edition. The design is absolutely smooth. In the first 3 levels, players have all the mechanics they need to understand the playstyle and narrative of the class. In subsequent levels, players will gain features that improve upon the core class, but do not add any new mechanics. Also, the features do not remove the chance of failure. Instead, they increase our chances to allow the class to survive at the higher tiers of play. In a total display of system understanding, Benjamin compensates for the power of the bonus action attack from the synergy between the flow and cunning action features by having the class obtain the extra attack feature at 11th level. This puts its power in line with the fighter, as the fighter gets its 3rd attack at 11th level for its power spike for higher tiers of play. Similar to the fighter, the Zephyr is geared towards combat with it being a little weak in out of combat encounters. It is not an expert in social or exploration challenges, but with skills and creative use of features, it won't be completely shut out of those encounters. I just want to give a quick thank you to Benjamin Huffman for providing a copy of the Zephyr for review. If you enjoyed Benjamin Huffman's Zephyr class but are looking for a third-party spellcasting class, you're in luck because I have a video for you right here on the screen. You can click on this video on Benjamin Huffman's The Thaumaturge to learn about a spellcaster that takes the spellcasting mechanics we are familiar with for 5th edition, but uses them in a new way. Alright, I'm out of here. Have a good one.